All right, guys. So now that President Trump has come out and put the pressure on the politicians to fix this disgraceful stimulus/spending bill that is filled with special interests and pork, now the real political games start, right? And what I mean by that is that we're finally going to see who wants what in this stimulus package, because the Republicans and the Democrats have went back and forth in regards to playing the blame game. Whose fault is it that the stimulus checks are only $600? Did the Republicans want stimulus checks all along, or did the Democrats want stimulus checks all along? That's what they've been going back and forth about, because stimulus checks is like the direct payment to Americans, and it is the most tangible thing that we can see. So now that President Trump has come out and called for $2,000 stimulus checks, that is substantially higher than what we got in the first stimulus package, and what we were going to get, at least for right now, in the new stimulus package. So with that being said, we're really going to see who wants to send the money to the American people. And this is, again, a genius move by Trump. Genius move. Because these politicians are going to be put on the spot. So I'm going to break that down for you guys, because I already told you before. Get your popcorn ready. Politics for the next month is going to be crazy interesting. So let's see what the politicians are talking about. And guys, honestly, I'm just doing political analysis here. Okay, I'm just going off what they're saying. And we can go from there, you know. So I'm just reading what Pelosi says. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with her or anything like that. I'm just reading what they're saying for right now. So Nancy Pelosi responded to President Trump and said Republicans repeatedly refused to say what amount the president wanted for direct checks. At last, the president has agreed to $2,000. Democrats are ready to bring this to the floor this week by unanimous consent. Let's do it. All right, so this is how the political game works, guys. Nancy Pelosi is basically sending the first shot in response to President Trump and saying, listen, we want the $2,000 checks. We're ready to do it now, and we're going to do it by unanimous consent, which basically means they're going to try to meet before Christmas. It looks like they're going to meet on Christmas Eve, in which the House will be in a pro forma session, and it will only take one lawmaker to prevent its passage. So that means everybody has to agree on amending the stimulus package. Now, keep in mind, guys, President Trump hasn't actually vetoed the package. He's really just said, hey, listen, this sucks. Amend it, send it back to me. So he hasn't officially vetoed it yet. So he's giving the politicians a chance to actually fix it. So the House Democrats are going to have the first shot at kind of setting the tone here. Now, it looks like they're all on board, at least from what they're saying. Chuck Schumer is calling out Mitch McConnell and saying, I'm in. What do you say, Mitch? Let's not get bogged down with its ideological offsets and unrelated items and just do this. The American people deserve it. All right. And he added Mitch McConnell straight up, you know, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rashida Tlaib talking about how they wrote the COVID amendment for the $2,000 checks. They're glad to see the president willing to support their legislation, et cetera, et cetera. Chuck Schumer basically saying they spent, months trying to secure $2,000 checks and blaming things on Republicans. So again, the Democrats are coming out first, blaming the Republicans as typical and firing shots. Now, not all Democrats are necessarily on board with trying to negotiate with the president. Looks like Amy Klobuchar came out and basically tried to attack the president on trying to get the American people more money. Let's take a listen.
Something that Democrats argued for at every step of the process. And now House Democrats say, okay, well, if that's what he wants, we'll provide him with that. I wonder just what you make of this very last minute scramble of what we thought was going to proceed here with this relief bill.
I kept thinking tonight, well, these pardons are an attack on our very democracy. This is an attack on every American. people who are struggling to get by right now, out of work, whose the unemployment is going to basically end the day after Christmas if this doesn't pass. People who are out of work, people who need the help. The vaccine distribution, Rachel, is in this $30 billion. These vaccines are not going to just parachute into a small town in the middle of Minnesota. We need the help for the states to get the vaccines out. And he is literally undermining our entire effort on testing and vaccine distribution. This was a hard-fought negotiation. Of course, you're right. Democrats were pushing for more funds for the individual payments. But in the end, this was a negotiation. And he knows very well we're reaching the end here with the unemployment, with our small businesses can't take it anymore. One Yelp study early in the year showed we were having 800 small businesses close a day. And there's over $300 billion to help small businesses in this bill. It is the second biggest stimulus in the history of America. And for him to turn this down, obviously we have the votes to override his veto in the houses. We have those votes. But he should not be doing this right now when his own Treasury Secretary, Steven Mnuchin, was involved in the negotiations from beginning to end. He is literally trying to burn this country down on his way out, as I said at the beginning. And all we can do is push and make it very clear as we go into these Senate races in Georgia, Rachel, which party has people's back and which party is in the White House.
Now, probably the only good point that she made throughout that whole video, because most of the video was just garbage, right? Everything she's saying was just BS, is bringing up the Senate races. And the reason why is because these stimulus checks, these $2,000 stimulus checks, can have a huge effect on this Senate race coming up in Georgia. Remember, guys, Mitch McConnell even came out and said, hey, one of the reasons why we really want to get this done, and particularly the stimulus checks, is because of the Senate race coming up in Georgia, and we saw that was negatively affecting us in the polls. So because of that, this is actually a very good point from Amy Klobuchar, because otherwise, you know, it would be one of those things where if nothing was on the line, would there be any reason for the Democrats to want it or the Republicans to want it? I mean, seriously, I mean, that's actually a good question to think about. This whole Georgia Senate race kind of changes things in the sense that if one party can get a major win before this race comes up, that could swing the race in any direction. Now, otherwise, what Amy Klobuchar is saying is really just ridiculous, because she's trying to say the president is attacking the people because he wants to give the people more money. Because if you really was on board with giving the people more money, having more money for American people and get rid of these special interests, then what's the problem? Why don't you and the Democrats just come together and be like, okay, we're going to pass this bill unanimously and we're going to go from there. And we're going to put the ball in the Republicans' court. Now, that seems to be what Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer want to do. But Amy Klobuchar is coming out and taking this opportunity to try to attack the president when she should be getting behind the president. Right? If that's what if she really believes that the American people should get more aid. But instead, she's okay with American people getting chump change and $600 because, you know, she just don't want to work the president. Orange man bad. Trump bad. Can't work with him. Right? That's basically the only thing that she's about. She's irrelevant. Now, the only Republican to speak out about this is Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham says, appreciate the fact that Speaker Pelosi supports President Donald Trump's idea to increase direct payments to $2,000 per person. The American people are hurting and deserve relief. I know there's much bipartisan support for this idea. Let's go further. Okay, so just reading this tweet, this is a good sign, right? Because Lindsey Graham is essentially indicating, you know what, hey, we'll do $2,000 stimulus checks. We're on board with that. There's a lot of bipartisan support for this idea. But he also says, I hope Speaker Pelosi will agree with President Trump that big tech needs to be reined in by winding down Section 230 liability protections. I have reason to believe this combination will lead to President Trump supporting the National Defense Authorization Act and COVID-19 omnibus bills. All right, guys, so this is where the real political game is played. He's trying to throw in the Section 230 liability protections, the National Defense Authorization Act, and the COVID-19 stimulus bills and make them all one issue. And the reason why is because he's trying to bait Pelosi into figuring out what she's willing to negotiate on. Remember, his first tweet, he said, okay, we can agree on the $2,000 stimulus checks, but we also want to get this defense bill passed. And President Trump has threatened to veto the defense bill, the National Defense Authorization Act, but he has not vetoed it yet. That's actually sitting on his desk. He hasn't vetoed it yet. But he says he's going to veto it unless they get rid of the Section 230 liability protections. So Trump wants to get rid of that because he's trying to go after big tech. And Lindsey Graham is trying to make all of this one issue. And this is purely a negotiating tactic. Now, that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. Some people may disagree, but this is what he's saying. Now, notice Mitch McConnell has not spoke yet. And there's a reason for that, because I think Lindsey Graham is the guy that's going to come out and put the feelers out to see, okay, what is the sentiment here? Also, let's not forget, this is Lindsey Graham defending spending money in Pakistan.
So, yeah, there are things in there. The foreign aid budget is 1% of all American spending. Pakistan is a place I really worry about. 85 countries, a woman can't open up a bank account without her husband's signature. She can't inherit property. If you're a young girl in Pakistan, life is pretty tough, so we're trying to make life better for women throughout the world. But 1% of all federal spending is foreign assistance.
Everything that he said there literally has nothing to do with money and everything to do with religion and culture, right? You really think you can throw money at women not being old property in Pakistan? Come on now. I don't know. Maybe he think that we was born yesterday. Who knows? Now, speaking of Mitch McConnell, President Trump has gone on the attack against Mitch McConnell in a more direct way. Remember, I told you guys before, when Mitch McConnell first came out and congratulated Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on the presidency, I told you, get your popcorn ready, because him doing that is in direct opposition to the president. Mitch McConnell and President Trump are not politically aligned, okay? They're just not. And I told you guys, I would pay an unlimited amount of money to hear a backroom conversation between President Trump and Mitch McConnell. Now, apparently, Trump had, or one of his assistants had emailed House Republicans with a graph where basically Trump is taking credit for getting Mitch McConnell reelected. Right? He's basically trolling Mitch, letting Mitch know, hey, I'm still your daddy. Don't forget that I run this. This is Trump trying to reaffirm his grip on the Republican Party. This is what Trump is doing right now. Now that's assuming that this is something that Trump assistant actually sent. And then you see here on Twitter, President Trump, after he comes out with that tweet regarding announcing that he may not accept the COVID-19 spending bill, he says, Republicans in the Senate so quickly forget. Right now, they will be down 8 seats without my backing them in the last election. Ryan O. John Thune, quote, Mitch's boy, should just let it play out. South Dakota doesn't like weakness. He will be primary in 2022. Political career over. Now, guys, this is a direct attack against the Republican establishment from Trump. Trump is again basically telling them, I'm your daddy. I run the Republican Party. This is my party. You guys need to fall in line, right? And I think this is direct play to them to tell them they need to get behind these $2,000 stimulus checks. I really do believe that this is what Trump is saying. I understand Trump, trying to overturn the election and trying to get Republican congressmen on board with objecting to the Electoral College votes. Obviously, that is a motivation. But I also feel like, with the timing of all this, I think him trying to push the stimulus and get the changes he wants to the spending bill done, I think that this is kind of a kick in the butt to Republicans to say, hey, listen, y'all need to fall in line. But yeah, guys, this is the current political landscape. This is the chess game that is currently being played between the Democrats and the Republicans. Now, I'm just simply outlining what people are saying on Twitter and in public on social media so that you guys can get a good idea in terms of, you know, who's taking current positions right now. Because what President Trump did when he came out and basically said, I'm going to potentially veto this bill if you guys don't change it, he's putting the spotlight on who wants to send the American people money, who wants to clean up this spending bill, and who doesn't. And both parties will not be able to hide. Right, just like the fact that all the pork and the special interests and all that stuff that's in those spending bills. Right. By the way, the lobbyists are responsible for that. The lobbyists are the people that put all that stuff in the bills. Those are the people that write these bills. But just like that stuff couldn't hide because everybody was paying attention to the stimulus. And for whatever reason, the politicians decided it was a good idea to all pass it as one. And now all of a sudden, the American people are like, wait, hold on. You sending money to where? Right? All eyes are now on who is going to get behind what the president is saying and who is not. And right now, the Democrats have taken a position where, at least in regards to the $2,000 stimulus checks, they're saying that they're all in on face. Now, who knows in terms of their action? Now, the special session that comes up will give us more information about that. But that's the position they're taking. And really right now, the ball is in the Republicans' court. And it'll be very, very interesting to see how Mitch McConnell reacts to the Democrat move and the president's announcement. So we'll see how it all works out. I'm just lining things up for you guys right now. There's not that much information from the Republicans, so it's not really like I can say that much about their position in regards to the Democrats. But the Democrats have all come out and kind of stated their position. So that's basically where we're at. I just want you guys to understand the environment because it's going to be interesting stuff. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.